Hello, everybody, and welcome to Documentation Not Included. It's Thursday, 7 p.m., and we're live on twitch.tv/DNI stream for those of you who want to listen to us live in the future. It is time for episode 11.4, Working, complete with bunny ears, from home. I'm Josey Howarth, and as always, I am joined by my co-host who makes me smile every time I see him, Chris Seebach.
Hello, Josey, and a big hello to everybody in Twitch chat. There's already a little bit of conversation going on, which is always awesome to see. Please do get involved with the show, ask any questions, make any comments. We may very well read them out on the show.
Yes. And before we get going, as always, we're going to have an icebreaker, chance to get to know us better. Maybe, maybe not. And my icebreaker question for you is very simple. Would you like to live the rest of your life in spring, summer, fall, or winter, if you could only pick one season?
In the country that I live in currently? Or
no, it could be anywhere.
Anywhere.
You can pick anywhere you want. Just what is your season? Season, says whatever.
Spring.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not too warm. I get to see usually in the outside world when I go for my hikes and my walks and my bike rides, I get to see lambs. I get to see like little new animals, baby animals. And it's not too hot, and I can't stand the heat too much. The winter, it's too dark. It's not necessarily the cold or the bad weather. It's the darkness. It's the 4 hours of daylight that you get a day. It gets me down most years, especially in England. But spring, it's just about right. The end of spring, like the last week in spring is probably perfect for me. I can go abroad if I want, and it's not too hot for me. Yeah. What about you?
Before I answer that, I have to say what went through my head. You mentioned new animals, and I just started laughing because I went instantiate new animal as I started going through dubbing in my brain. It's like, how would you do that?
New animal.
New animal.
Baby. Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it would be fall. I don't know how to express, but there is this smell, this feeling, and this sort of awareness to the season of fall. Plus, if I could, every day would be Halloween.
We do enjoy Halloween. There's a lot of things going on in our life in fall or autumn, as as English people call it. But I like it as well. It's either of them for me, but spring I think would be my choice because of the baby animals everywhere. So many of them. Sorry, I'm a softie.
Yes, big old marshmallow that you happen to be.
Yeah.
Aww.
So on to today's subject, working from home. I am an advocate of remote working. Josey is a remote worker, but not maybe as much of an evangelist as I am. I think you've got a slightly differing opinion. So hopefully today we'll be going through that. We're going to talk about the pros, the cons, the mental anguish that we sometimes go through, the fact that we get ignored a lot of the time, and the fact that people look at us quite often in a very different way. Sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we get clients or we get people who understand and can see that we're producing quality work and output. I, for example, am a lot more productive at home. What about you, Josey? What are you? Do you think you're more productive at home? Do you think you'd work better in an office with people? Do you think you bounce off people better?
I'm going to use a phrase that one of my friends said today. I hate people. I love individuals. That kind of a thing. There's a phrase that goes with it, and I can't remember the exact terminology. But for me, I can work in an office, but I, as an individual, am so much more productive when I'm not around other people at all.
There's a misconception a lot of the time as well. I mean, I will, full disclaimer here, and I don't care if my clients are watching this and some of them won't like what I have to say a lot about working from home a lot of the time. I will play a game at home sometimes. I'll play a game at lunchtime, or I'll finish work early and go and go for a walk or something. I'm not engaged fully from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon all the time, and that might sometimes come across as a negative thing. But that, to me, it makes me more productive. The fact that I've got the freedom to do that kind of thing, but I also have the discipline, and that's the key thing here, to have the discipline.
This That word right there is why I am not an evangelist for working from home.
Yeah.
Not everybody has the discipline. Now, for me, in my particular case, a lot of my discipline comes from the fact that I did some online university stuff through part of my education, which means I had to structure and tailor when it is I was going to be attending a class, or I had to structure and tailor when it is I was going to be reading the mass quantity of unimaginably expensive books that are required as part of the educational experience. So I had learned very early on how to schedule, organize, and do time management. So for me, working from home is easy. However, and bless you, my darling husband, I love you to bits and pieces, and he will be listening to this live from where he's at. Well, not live, but recorded from where he's at. But he can only occasionally work from home. And he will state the exact same thing. He'll say, when he is at home, if he is doing a proper work from home, he can get a lot done because he doesn't have the phone calls coming in. He doesn't have the people, constantly sitting there saying, you need to be a part of this meeting, or can you get up and get me a brew? Or like that is not there. He can put his brain down and get whatever project work he needs done. However, if he worked from home, like I do, every single day of the week, you too, calls him.
He's watching live now, actually. He's just commented in chat.
Hi! I thought he was going to be out and about. Hi, sweetie.
I've just want to read something out from one of our listeners, Ethrical. He says that I do actually do more hours from home because I don't have to do the 4 hours travel. So that's one of the other things as well. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of pros and cons. I see many, many more pros working from home personally, but I can also see the cons. So we'll start with defending ourselves and talking about what's good about it. We get more work done because of lack of, we don't have to commute, but we also get more. There's also a negative side to that in that we can sometimes get more work done because we think we should do more work at home because of the perception that our clients or our...
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so sometimes...
I was getting narrowed-eyed. I was about to go... Pew, pew,
so,
pew.
No, this is the 24/7 indispensable developer thing we talked about before as well.
Sort of. It's that whole kind of thing. If you are at work or in a physical location in a building and you are a seat warmer, that is what I call people who work not from home. I apologize, y'all. Seat warmers. What can I say? The boss can pass by and they can see your computer screen and they can go, yes, you are here. You are actively engaged in working. I counter that with a practical bullshit because half the time you will be so busy sitting there going, Bob just came over and decided to have a 4-hour conversation with me about a project, and I have done none of the other stuff I was supposed to do, and yet sometimes you can, but seat warmers.
Yeah, I mean, but I bums on seats. That's the way I look at it. You're in an office and you
can prove it. So
people a lot of the time want that, and a lot of the work that I do, if I do a development contract or I do some development work for somebody, usually I insist on some time, face-to-face time with people initially to get the requirements down, to figure out what they need and to get to know people a little bit. And most of the time, no one has a problem with that because they usually want me in the office a lot more than that. But then I say, well, there isn't, because now I've got work to do. We have these 15-minute conversations every day to, these agile stand-ups, so if we're in an agile environment. And then after that, I've got so much work to do, so many different work streams, that it's not very productive for me to be in the office and be involved in, and this sounds really misanthropic, to be involved with all of the throwing plastic balls around in the office at each other and going to the breakout room every 5 minutes to have a chat, which is just as bad as working from home, isn't it? It's as unproductive, but there's also the team element as well a lot of the time. A lot of clients of mine want me to be working as part of a team and to be contributing towards it. As a contractor, I'm there for a very short period of time. The value that I get personally and the value that they get from me being part of a team is extremely limited in the grand scheme of things. What I'm there to do most of the time is to deliver this piece of software, get it out the door, get it done, or fill a gap in resourcing of some description and get it done and then that's it. They'll get rid of me. Sometimes it's a paper, a tick box ticking exercise. Other times they'll keep renewing me because they keep needing the resource. But I am just a number on a piece of paper, on a bean counter's piece of paper, as you put it before.
That is both a pro and a con.
Yes.
Right? Let's be realistic here. Like, for example, you went to networking things once a week. I think I remember you saying you stopped doing that. But you went to it once a week because, and actually one of the big reasons why documentation not included exists is because we do work from home. And it's so lonely at times.
It can be.
Because you don't have someone to brainstorm an idea off of, or someone to sit there and go, atta boy or atta girl or whatever. That social engagement is gone. That is both really good when you need to put your head down and work on a project, and really bad when you, for lack of a better term, the Sims game, how they have mood bubbles? There's a social one. When that little bar starts to decrease and you need some kind of social engagement and you don't get that because you are working from home, it can make it feel like you have all of the pressure sitting on you and nobody respects you, no one appreciates you. So there's this balancing act that has to be done, and you can find ways to fill that mood bar, so to speak.
It's less about, for me, I understand that the mental anguish that you can sometimes get from, and the what's the word when you're alone, you're feeling
isolated.
That's perfect. That's exactly the word I was looking for. So
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
So you feel isolated working at home. I mean, my wife, she works at home. She works for me she does the work downstairs, and she leaves me alone all day while I get my work done, and then I go downstairs and spend time with her. But that's just one other person in the world. As much as I love my life to bits, it's not enough a lot of the time. You need other people to bounce off.
Especially people who understand what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, I love my husband, but he doesn't always get what I do, even though he is in the IT world. And sometimes I don't understand half of what comes out of his mouth. So finding that those individuals who can speak your language is so important. So if you do work from home, and one of the biggest cons for you is that lack of social engagement, there are ways to find that social engagement.
Yes, as we said, networking and lots of other things. My main
Join us on documentation not included.
Yeah, or come and join us as a guest.
Come talk to us.
My main problem with working at home, or the main downside, my biggest con for working at home, is the deprioritization of my work. I am usually paid a significant amount of money from a company's budget, whether or not they're a multinational corporation or they're a tiny little company that need an expert. Because I'm not there in the office, and because I'm not seen as a permanent employee, a lot of the time I get paid and they don't respond to me. They don't engage with me as much as they should do. They should, I suppose, value what I'm doing more. And I consider that deprioritization of my priorities. I've been brought on for a very specific reason. And that specific reason is usually a major blocker within the company. Go on.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because while you and I are both companies and we both work from home and we're both sort of consultant/freelancer type things, we do have vastly different ways in which we contract our work out.
Yep.
So for you, you feel deprioritization, whereas for me, I don't. I very, very, very rarely run across that. Instead, it's more because I am brought on more retainership than just, a short period of stay. It's that, oh my God, we're desperate. Contact Josey. The superhero will help. Like I have a one particular client who, anytime that they reach out to me, and even if the email is just as simple, can you verify that this is actually spam for me or something else like that? When they finish, and I speak with probably about 9 or 10 different people in this company, when they finish a conversation with me, it's always, you have been an absolute lifesaver. We can't do this without you. Thank you so much. It's like I get that sort of feedback very readily.
Do you work with business owners and people who are directly responsible for the finances in the company?
Yes.
I don't.
As a matter of fact, I'm really, really good friends with the CFO with this place.
But that's the difference. That you work with maybe the smaller companies that have a higher priority on the immediate finances that they outlay for your services, whereas I work with big companies that they pay bigger rates, I would imagine. Again, I don't profess to know what you get paid or anything like that, but I imagine they pay bigger outputs for more contractors a lot of the time. Less recently, I've been doing smaller bits of work with smaller clients where I'm pretty much the only expert a lot of the time. But a lot of the time, it's just, that's a 60 grand a month output for 400 contractors or whatever. You know, I haven't even worked out what it might be. But, you know, it's like, it's a ridiculous amount of money for a load of people that are just in to do a job that needs doing quickly. We've got 3 months to get this out the door so we can start making mega bucks, you know?
It's interesting. I have to ask you, Chris, do you differentiate in your brain between the term contractor and temporary worker?
Absolutely. Temporary workers are not necessarily experts in their domain. They are contracted in a very different way. They are a temporary employee of a company, whereas a contractor is generally should be an expert. And this is, I'm not going to get into it, but this is where the IR35 grey area comes in.
Yes.
We won't go into that because it's a massive hole to dig, but it is essentially what the problem is at the moment. A lot of contractors who run limited companies don't treat themselves as a business. They do not look at themselves as an individual, separate legal entity. They look at themselves as a temporary member of staff that comes in, does the job that they get told to do, and then goes away, or they'll keep renewing. And that isn't what I do. I do consultancy work on a short-term basis based on deliverables and milestones usually. And
that's something that we've definitely discussed before. There is a philosophy in mind, and it goes back towards working from home. We say we work from home, right? But technically speaking, we're working from an office that happens to be a residence where we sleep. That's really, it's a perspective thing. I could say to you that dress is blue and gold when the reality is it's white and green or whatever the heck that mess was. I don't even remember. But my point is, it's a matter of perspective. And this is where we run into some of the great pros and cons of productivity and timing, that whole 24-hour cycle. Because I used to, upstairs, there is an office that has been set up and designed, proper office desk and everything with locking drawers. It's all so fancy, in a filing cabinet. Oh,
I've got one of them just there. It's right there.
But I don't use it for work anymore.
Why not?
Because it got really cold up there and the fireplace is down here.
Okay. So I do have that.
And interestingly enough, I found that the moment I shifted from being in that because there are so many people who in the world of freelance or contract who are like, designate your place, and that is the only place, and that is where your work and your mindset goes into that. You are there. Like, I have seen so many people say that doesn't work for me. That actually slows my productivity down and actually makes me stress. So I have learned, being in what is considered the quote unquote personal space of my residency, that I actually am a lot more productive.
Downstairs than upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, granted, I stay warm in the winter and I stay coolish as I possibly can be in the summer, though so help me God, this British summer has been killing me. Sorry about last week again, folks.
I'm a massive advocate of the whole have your own space for work. You know, I get up 5, 6 o'clock or whatever time in the morning. Doesn't matter as long as you've got a schedule.
Yes.
I get dressed. So I go do my ablutions, I have my shower, I have my breakfast, I get dressed, and I start work. I used to start work at a specified time, but now I just start work as soon as I can, and it's usually well before anybody in any office is ready.
Is that it? Yes.
So,
and I'll tell you something. That is one of the best times to get work done, because then you can get all the emails and stuff prepped that you need to, so it's in their inbox when they walk in the door.
But work kind of standards aside, closing that door, being in here, my wife very rarely comes in. She doesn't.
She brings cuppas.
She brings me a cuppa, and she'll come in, and remind me if there's something I need to do that I haven't got up and went to do or something. Because again, recently we've had a lot of appointments and a lot of things that we've needed to do together, my wife and I. So having that flexibility of I've got a special Excel spreadsheet that I've set up, and this is really primitive for timesheeting, but it works really well for me, where I can put in start and end times multiple times within a day, and it logs exactly how many hours I've done, and then it adds them up throughout the day. So I can split my time. So I might do 7 till 8 one morning, and then I'll do 9 till 12 o'clock, and then I'll do...
Do you do a blocking method then?
I don't plan what I'm going to do during the day. I just know that the way that I work within the day, I did 9 hours on Monday, and I was up at, so I was up at 6. I finished at 3:30 or something, but I still managed 9 hours because I don't have much of a lunch. I don't have to have much of a lunch. Again, we might go into health and safety there, but as a director of your own company, you don't have to actually follow those health and safety rules. But
that's a benefit.
But what I'm saying is that it's up to me what hours I do, and some clients don't like that way that I do that. Most clients don't give a damn, luckily. But yeah. I just basically, whenever I'm sat down and I'm starting to work, because remember, I sit down on my computer and I do other things as well. I've got this stream to store. I don't charge my clients for the amount of time it takes me to put documents together for this. I don't charge my clients for lunchtime when I have half an hour playing a computer game or whatever. And I don't do that every day. I'm just saying that I charge them for what I am actually doing for them, whether it's thinking about them, reading a document, doing emails for them, or anything like that. It's all
I think that is a very important thing. As much as you can really advocate working from home, justification for your time is very difficult to do if you don't have your deliverables understood before you get started. That whole discovery phase. We really should have a show about the discovery process at some point. But I
am in one hell of a discovery process right now with one of my clients. It is a crazy situation that they're in. But I've just realised over the last week that they're actually they've been through a huge research stage for products. They're coming out of a research stage into actual development. So the development that I've done for them previously has all been prototypes, but they didn't know that, and they didn't explain that to me. I just thought it was a product they were developing for the future, but they're actually not even at a stage where they know what their product is. So it's a very different, weird situation for me, but I'm acting more as a business consultant for what I'm doing for them at the moment, and putting processes in place and telling them what resources they need. And it's a very strange, but I'm doing that from home, bringing it back around to what the subject is about here. Doing that from home is extremely challenging because they are chaotic and they don't have any processes, so agile doesn't exist with them. They've got a few tools and a few remote working tools that have been implemented, but they haven't paid licenses for the pro versions of them, for example. So we can't use screen sharing in Slack. We can't use, it's got a 10K message limit. We can't add something else that came up the other day.
Should not be where you store documentation.
No.
Anyway.
But I'm saying message limits and stuff. But I'm saying we've got Confluence for that as well. But beside the point, all of these tools I am forcing upon the company because they need them desperately, absolutely desperately. And I'm very lucky in that the operational staff are taking it on board, listening to me and moving with it. So it's an odd situation because I'm very much in charge and very much the leader of the process, but I'm remote and I'm the only one who's remote.
Chris with the whip.
Yeah, I am very much cracking the whip, and it's odd from a remote perspective.
It's interesting because that puts you both in a good position and in a bad position. One, it puts you in a brilliant position because it gives you the opportunity to have an almost outside glance as to how a team is working. However, it puts you in a bad side because you're also not there to make certain that they're doing the work that they need to do as well.
And observe what they're doing on a daily basis.
And observe what they're doing, exactly. And so there is this both pro con to that, but at the same time, going back to sort of the time thing, having, like, this goes back to what you were saying earlier in the show about overproducing to prove that you can produce. it's a very dangerous trap, and I find myself falling into it quite frequently.
I
And it's
don't.
not so much that I want to prove to the other people that I can produce. It's more just this matter of I know I can pump that out with just putting the blinders on. Nothing exists except for this one task and set of project things that I'm working on. Like, I can do that, but do you remember way back when I mentioned Top Toll?
Mm-hmm. I've been in touch with Top Toll recently. I have a contact there now.
Oh, excellent! You're part of one of the 5%.
No, not that 5%, but
oh.
That's 2%.
Is
2%
this where I tap my nose like Monty Python? But anyway, so they have that sort of time tracking tool where when you start whatever it is you're working on, you click your starting and it runs and it'll ask you which project you're working on, yada, yada. And then they have that built-in tool that'll take a screenshot every 15 minutes or however it's been set up to be done by whoever it is who's hired you. And they will literally see what you're working on that moment in time. I find that outrageous, but it is a viable thing.
Does that what all Top Toll clients
No,
do?
You can turn it off.
I'm going to say that's ridiculous.
Don't panic. It's okay. But it's an interesting sort of thing. If you know someone is looking over your shoulder, it can both make you squirm, like that interview you were telling us about in a previous show where you had to do the coding in a group kind of a thing, and it was just a nightmare for you. And at the same time, it could also push you to be better. It depends on the type of person you are. This is why I'm not a 100% advocate that everyone should work at home. I am an advocate for everyone should have a schedule that benefits and works for them. But location, I think, is incredibly subjective as to whether or not it will be successful or not.
I've got contractor friends who have more than enough opportunity and control over the way they do their work, but they prefer to work in an office because they prefer the banter, they prefer the bouncing off other developers. They just sometimes don't just put the headphones in and just stay in the office all day. They prefer that structure. And that's fine. I've got no problem with that. I said I'm an evangelist, I'm an advocate for it because of how it's looked at by a lot of clients these days.
Right.
And America is a bit ahead in comparison to the UK. The UK is very much, it's smaller. People expect you to go on site, even though it's like an hour or two away or whatever, especially when you're a contractor and you're getting paid what you're getting paid. They expect you to come on site and be part of the team. It's an absolute nonsense notion to me that because these days, it's 2019, we can use Slack, we can use appear in,
productivity tools is exactly what those things are called.
We've got Kanban boards. We can show people exactly what ticket we're working on, and they can even, if they really want, write reports and burn down charts and all kinds of stuff. Commit reviews, pull requests and stuff. There's a million different ways for us to manage that, and all of those things happen and exist in the office environment anyway. And the rest of the time, we usually sat there with our headphones in, coding as coders. And the places that don't let me put my headphones in and code like that, I'm out of the door. I am literally out of the door. I've walked out of places where they've had a headphone rule in the office, and I've just said, sorry, there's a sales team behind me on the phone all the time. I'm working on a binary search algorithm that's particularly complicated, and I can't be seen. Sometimes I have to do that. I know it looks antisocial and not everybody can do it. And the sales team, sorry, not the sales team, the telesales team aren't allowed to listen to music, but they're not a developer. They're not doing the same job. It's a completely different world. And
that's the thing. What's the one thing, I shouldn't say what is, I should say for me, one of the things that I love about what I do, especially when I get into the coding side of things or the development side of things, is that sort of mental state that I go into where everything else stops to exist. It's a zone. It is this zone that I exist in that allows me to literally, my camera just decided to vanish. Weird.
It did. You are frozen, but we can still hear you.
So awesome. So fantastic. I don't know what that was, but for me, it was, see, of course, I've lost my train of thought with that.
Shall we do a be right back, and you can refresh your screen? Let's do
sure,
that.
then people can look at me then. We'll
Yes.
be right back.
Be right back,
We actually
everyone.
have a Be Right
We
Back
do,
screen. We
we
get to
do.
use one.
Hopefully it works
This is our
okay.
first time we've used it.
See you in a second, everybody. Hello, everybody.
As I was saying, this is why we... yes. So there are some technical difficulties there, but we were talking about the working from home stuff, and
you've lost your train of thought, haven't you? Let's move on. We were on a roll then as well.
It's not like anything I have to say is worth any value at all. So let's go ahead and move on.
So I said recently I've had a particularly interesting way of looking at working from home. I really would prefer for the job I'm doing right now to be on site. And that is something I would not normally say.
No, this is shocking for me. I'm wondering if I should write it down in a calendar.
Now the problem is that I can't be on site because my client, they can't afford me to be on site because they would have to pay all expenses because of where they are located. And secondly, or they can afford it, but they don't want to afford it.
Right.
And secondly, it's miles away, and I'm in a position at the moment where I need to be close to my wife. So, I mean,
yes,
I can't really spend too long away from home. A week maybe I can go away, but I
don't know. Spouses that go away for longer than a week, we could have a show about that.
Exactly. So. But the reason that I specifically would want to be on site right now is that the work I'm doing is not development work. It is work that requires me to go and speak to people in the office and get them engaged in a process and get them to buy into it. I am essentially, this lovely term that you hate, Josey, I am essentially a Scrum Master. I am an agile evangelist at the moment.
I don't have a problem with the term Scrum Master. I think Scrum Masters are pretty cool. I just find it funny that the position never existed until development processes needed it.
It's not a position. It's a role within a team that anybody can do.
But, no. There are some people who will go right out there and tell you that it is a position, and they will have job searches for Scrum Masters whose entire purpose is to be Scrum Master.
Okay, if you're a Scrum Master for a big corporation and you are a Scrum Master for multiple Scrum teams and that's all you do, you're there to promote Scrum and Agile, to make sure that people are getting involved in the processes, make sure that you're unblocking things for people, make sure that you're ensuring people attend meetings that they should be attending, and basically embedding a process in people's brains and psyche and making them understand what the value of it is. Yes, that is a full-time job. For something like this, where it's a tiny little team that have a lot of projects and not much process involved, it's a full-time job up front, but then it fast becomes something you can do on a ad hoc basis. But that's the thing, is it's different. But now, at the moment, the way that it stands is the reason I need to be there is that people they're very, very, very busy with a lot of things. They are expected to do a lot of different things within their role. They're expected to do things well outside of the remit of their job description. Non-technical people being asked to manage Linux servers honestly, there's so many things. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that.
Right.
There's so many things that they're being asked to do that they shouldn't do. And there's no other resources even planned to come in at the moment. There is advice that I've given people, but they haven't actually planned it. They haven't got the finance and the budget sign-off for it. So it's a very precarious position. In order for me to be constantly chasing people and constantly sending emails to people doesn't have the same impact. And the stakeholders, very specifically the stakeholders who are of an older generation who don't really want to be on Slack. They couldn't care less about reading all the documentation we put in Confluence. They couldn't care less about going through the Jira ticket. And in fact, it's well below what they should be doing, really. Stakeholders shouldn't really be involved at the operational level. But they don't have a buffer between stakeholder and operations. So I need to be that buffer, and I need to be there constantly. And the problem is I'm still offering value, and I'm still doing the job I can do best. But even if I wasn't in the position with my wife, they still wouldn't have me on site, but they've hired me for this purpose. So it's a weird, odd...
They like you.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Well, Yes and no. I mean, that's. I'm still trying to gauge if I'm doing the right job for them, and I keep asking them outright, Are you happy with what I've been delivering here? Would you, if you had an infinite amount of money, would you be happy keeping me on? And I've still not got any straight answers. But that's the problem. They don't give anyone straight answers to anything because everyone's afraid of making a decision. So it's a difficult place to be.
At some point in time, we really should have a discussion, especially as you and I both see ourselves as companies and employees of our own companies, kind of a philosophy. We need to have a discussion about the whole decision-making process, because I'll tell you something. It is so annoying to me when a company or a contractor or something like that doesn't make decisions.
I'm a decision machine.
That's almost an RTFM for me. But yes, so going back to the whole concept, we have a lot of really good pros in our opinion. However, I can also see the con. It's a matter of what job it is you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a little bit about our productivity. We've talked a little bit about the flexibility that you can have with your hours. We've mentioned the fact that, at times it can feel as if your work just doesn't matter in some way, shape, or form, or, the fact that people don't want to respond to you because you're not there in their face to stop them from getting their cuppa, as the case may be. But do you see any other really specific cons? Because we've talked a lot about the pros here.
So we've briefly touched on it. Another con, which is something I don't necessarily suffer from, but I know a lot of other people do, and I've spoke to many a developer.
If this is a little dig at me that it's possibly me, but God.
Well, it may very well, Josey. That's up to you to divulge if you feel like it's something that affects you. The mental health issue, the not just the feeling of being kind of left out, the feeling of being disconnected from other people, but it can actually sometimes be quite damaging to your mental health being a fully remote worker, especially if you don't have, and a lot of techie people kind of suffer from this, other hobbies that get you in social situations. I am a particularly outgoing techie. I wouldn't ever put myself in the nerd category, the uber geek category. I'm a geek, but I'm not the kind of, I'm not the typical kind of shying away from people thing. I will walk into a pub and make friends.
We will not on this show nerd shame.
No. That was not a shame in any.
No, it's just the fact that the way you said it with that, my brain went to that really old movie where they're like nerds.
Yeah, sorry if I did offend anybody. I don't mean it that way because I am honestly one of the most accepting people I know. Everybody is equal in my eyes, and it doesn't matter what you're into. I will try and. If someone's got an anxiety or something, I see it as a personal challenge to make them feel comfortable and to try and get them engaged and help them along. Whether or not they want me to, I hope they'll tell me, but they wouldn't because they've got anxiety. So I'm in a bit of a catch-22 with that, but you know what I
mean. No, I get what you're saying, but when it comes to mental health and working from home, it's a very, very, very under-talked about topic.
It is.
And the reason and this is something that I will throw out, no one I think I know is normal. Everyone suffers from something, whether they have a disconnection to society because they just don't connect to humans at all. I know quite a few developers who are developers because they understand computers better than they understand people. And they have no source of tact, and I think it's wonderful. Speaking with someone who has no concept of tact is interesting because they say exactly what's on their mind, and you can then just work with it. You just have to not take it personally, as the case may be. But then, of course, you have the people who suffer from anxiety, people who suffer from depression, or any mixture of any kind of illness that happens to exist. Now, not just mental, I also want to throw out physical, because physical can also have an impact as well. But for now, we'll stick with mental. If you are someone who suffers from something, understanding your limitations and working from home is very important. I will go right out on the record. I have depression. I have it up and down. I have all kinds of horrible, horrible events with it. And it can impact my ability to feel accomplished or feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do for a client. Or, it can make me feel like I should look at myself and be like, yeah, I'm not good enough. That whole imposter syndrome gets mixed up on top of that, and it can screw me over. But this is actually one of the big reasons why I work from home, because I know my limitations. I know how to work within the confines of what I suffer through and when I suffer through it. So, for example, one of the best parts of working from home with me is the flexibility of my hours. I am given, because of the type of the retainerships and things that I have with my clients, I am given a fixed amount of time per week or per month that I must dedicate to a client for whatever purposes that I happen to be brought on to take care of. If that is something that I do at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's something I do at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I may have had a really bad nightmare, or I may have had a really bad day and I wasn't able to put my focus in. I still meet and unfortunately over exceed some of the goals given to me, simply because of the fact that I want to give and I want to constantly do things. So in my case, that flexibility allows me for, if I've had a really, 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 really bad night, and I can have them on occasion, it's okay for me to sit there and go, I can't do anything this morning. I'll have to take care of it later. And I know how to work with that. Not everybody is aware of how to make use of what ever their limitations might be. You have to be very blunt with yourself. It's in this particular case. If you're the type of person who needs social interactions in order to accomplish things in a work environment, working from home is going to be really hard. Really hard. And I don't think anyone should put that kind of extra anxiety on their own shoulders.
There's also the self-discipline side of that as well, isn't there?
Yes.
Of being able to make sure that you have a routine or you have a way of working. Exactly. As I said, I don't work full 7.5 hours, with a lunch break or 8 hours or whatever. I don't work that. I work in chunks.
That's the thing.
Sometimes it'll be a 15-minute
blocking. That's why I asked if you did blocking, because that's how I do things. I'll block, and I'll know that, like, I have my weekly meetings, and I have them set at a very specific time so that I know that I'm meeting with this client, and this is when we're going to discuss what's been done, what the blockers are, and what we're doing. And that sort of typical stand-up. I have those things set and scheduled because at times where I know I'm actually, no matter where I'm at and whatever I may be suffering at any moment in time, I know exactly that I'll be able to handle and take care of it, period.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the side benefits of this is, because of the fact that I work with international clients, it means that I'm actually around at times when most people in UK are asleep. Go figure.
9 till 6. You don't 9 p.m. That's about when I go to bed. I'm so old these days. You
were younger than me.
The last time that I stayed up late was when I got me and the wife both really got addicted to Subnautica. And we were up until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning most mornings, and just playing it because we absolutely loved it. But that's the only time of recent years that I can remember. I'm lucky, I suppose, in that I can sleep as soon as my head hits the pillow.
I can't do. It's so weird. My husband can do that. When we go to bed at the same time, which it happens on occasion, might I add. When we go to bed at the same time, the head goes down for him, and he's out.
Yep, my wife's jealous of that. I do that.
My head goes down onto the pillow, and all of a sudden, my brain goes, "So you have absolutely nothing to distract you."
Is that a male-female thing?
No, it's not.
Because my wife has exactly that. She's all the little, what she describes, not my words, of all the little things that go on, during the day that she'll think about, like something that's happened on TV or something that's worrying her, or genuine concerns that she has about health and all kinds of other things. And her brain will just start saying, well, what about this? What happens if this happens? And then what about, and then, and this happened today. And then, and me, I pillow, sleep.
No, I know men who go through this as well. But when my head hits that pillow, all of a sudden my brain just goes, yeah, I've got your undivided attention. So now let's have that conversation about the thing that you did when you were 8. Do you remember that? And do you remember how all of those parts got put back together? And do you remember how when you did this? Oh, and by the way, you know that particular development issue you were working on 3 weeks ago? This is the solution for it now. And I think you should know that that's the solution, and it's going to be in your head until you wake up. But I'm not going to
But
let
it's
you
not.
go to sleep.
If you don't go and do it now, it's going to go.
Exactly, exactly. Or something along those lines. And it's just the weirdest thing for me. I wish I had the ability to full stop, but it just doesn't work for me. My brain doesn't function that way. So,
Aye.
But yes, it is time now for our TFM. I am just going to totally cut us off with sleep.
I know, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's about time to move on.
Yes, it is. It is time to move on. It's at our TFM, which is where we take a moment and we just rant about something that is driving us absolutely bonkers. Can be dev-related or not. Got anything for me, Chris?
Usually I do. Ow. I don't know if you just heard that.
Yes, I did. Are you okay?
Christ. That was my neck, by the way, to people listening to the podcast.
I do believe that Chris just broke himself.
I actually don't this week. I mean, I've had a bit of... what I ranted about last week was kind of some client-related things, but it's not necessarily the client that I've got a problem with. I'm finishing work at the moment. I suppose this is my RTFM. I'm finishing work at the moment, and I'm not stopping thinking about work. Not because of the client, not because I'm frustrated with it. I am actually really enjoying the challenge with this current client, because there's no answers for anything, and I am an answers man, and I must have a solution. I suppose that's my RTFM, that not being able to switch off, because it doesn't happen to me often, but when it does, my wife notices. You know, I'm just sat there silent. She thinks I'm in a mood with her, and I'll be short with my answers, but not like curt. You know, I'll just be short. I'll just be like, yeah, that's cool. That's interesting, yeah. And I'll be like, my brain will just go, no, right. But I don't struggle to sleep because of that. I just have this for a few hours after work when I've got a particularly challenging challenge to overcome, or something to fit in, or I'm trying to think of a particular solution, like, right, what is it that is the problem here? What is it? Do we need to document something? Do we need to escalate something? Do we need to...
You can't shut off.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, so that's my RTFM, because I don't normally have it.
Yeah. No, Chris, you've had some conkers in our days when it comes to the RTFM.
I have, but I haven't really got any frustrations this week. I mean, we've actually had some really good news, me and wife, today, so we're in a particularly good mood. And
yay!
Apart from being absolutely boiling hot with my window closed and aircon off, it's great. The life's great.
I like to cook you once a week, Chris. It's the only way to make certain that you are perfect and not almost done, but absolutely perfect. Now, in my particular case for RTFMs, I have nothing.
No. Oh, it's a good week then. Good week for us.
I mean, I'm happy where I'm at with my clients. I'm happy where I'm at with the company. I think the life is fine. I obviously miss the man who is now just commenting in chat, broiled Chris.
Broiled sounds really nice. I like the word broiled. It sounds... But it's not that interesting when you broil food. Moist
is my favorite word. There are a lot of people who don't... I know, it's not a cooking... It's a favorite word. You like broiled? I like moist. But no, for me, I think I'm okay, which is great. Absolutely
Sometimes
great.
That's all you need, isn't it? Just to be okay. You don't need to be fantastic or exuberant or even, miserable, Sometimes some people love being miserable. I hate it. I hate being unhappy. And
okay, no, I'm going to throw this out, not as necessarily an RTFM, but as a sort of wake-up call for people who do work from home or who have contractor. Also, Voltskrat also likes the word moist, so I get to be awesome today. I also love that name too, but yes. So when it comes to having problems or something frustrating occurring, I get really annoyed when it's the thing that is focused on instead of how do I overcome it.
Yes,
I say this because We have
Just
had
have
my
an ask.
accountant on this show. In fact, really highly recommend it. If you want to see that accountants can have a sense of humor, go watch one of our previous episodes where he was on here. But we were talking today, and we were talking about something, and we were both making a comment about how when you're, and this goes back to you must make decisions kind of a thing. When you're in a business, if you are responsible for the business, you have to make decisions and live with the outcome because risk is inherent and you have to learn how to mitigate risk and all that other stuff that goes
Or
with it.
manage,
But
not necessarily mitigate, because you can't always mitigate a risk.
I meant that I got my M words messed up.
One of the things I'm doing at the moment is documenting. There must be about 40 or 50 high priority decisions that need to be made within the company, with the client I'm working with at the moment. And I'm documenting every single one, and I'm giving them multiple options, and I'm weighing them up, and I'm trying to get everybody engaged and involved in all of them. And there's very few people that actually want to make a decision, even the stakeholders. And it's like, I don't understand. Is it because you don't understand the process, or do you not actually get?
I think there is something inherent. There is this fear, right? Fear is a big contributor to why decisions don't get made. The fear of the unknown. Am I making the right choice? Am I making the right decision, etc.? However, by staying in that place and not making a decision, not taking action, it actually makes things worse.
You're chasing your tail constantly.
And it adds a level of anxiety and stress. And while, for example, when I go to put my head down at night, I might be spinning around going, well, you made this decision and it's going to come back and bite you and do all this horribly, because the brain is going to do what the brain does. It's how you prepare for those things. And it's like you don't want to borrow trouble, but you want to plan for trouble so that you can adjust accordingly.
Yep.
But if you spend all your time just sitting there going, what if, at what point are you going to take action?
Well,
so that's sort of my, if you're going to end up working from home, you need to be able to make decisions, because that's a big part of time management. That is a big part of discipline, is making the choice and going, you know what, today is a day that I am going to not work because my brain can't handle it. However, discipline wine says I need to adjust my schedule and know where I can fit in the work that I will not be able to perform to my ultimate today. You have to make good decisions, and that's one of the ones that I make on occasion.
See, that's interesting. You said good decisions there. There's also somebody else that I've worked with who they're an example of making decisions brashly and quickly and not thinking them through and not worrying about the risks. They make decisions sometimes based on cost, and it's not about cost a lot of the time, because in the long run you're not.
It can have a much bigger impact.
You might, let's say for example, you might pay £1,000 for a piece of software right now, and there's another alternative piece of software that's free, but it's not going to give you the same level of quality within the process that you're implementing or something like that. And a lot of people don't see that. They just see the figure and they go, well, I'm not using it, but the business needs it.
This is why it gets to the whole bean counter thing. You know, recently that Capital One has had a massive data breach, right?
No, I didn't know,
Capital One in the United States has had a humongous data breach. And in one of the subreddits that I follow, one of the security ones, they have a picture up of the aftermath. And all it is this huge list of job openings at Capital One that are security related. And of course, people joke about it going, so now they're trying to fix the gap, or I wonder how many of those people were fired, yada, yada. And I'll tell you what, the prevailing comments in that particular thread are things like, no, now they understand that they have to budget for it. Now they understand that this must be done. So I get that. And I think risk management or risk awareness, or just being sort of clear of how to handle risk in general, is so important if you are going to be a contractor.
One of the number one pieces of advice that kept coming up when I used to network with business owners, this is business owners who directly are responsible for big and small businesses. Number one piece of advice that kept coming up is hire early. If you think you need somebody for something, hire them. You can always get rid of them. You can always make them redundant. But make sure you hire people to actually fill the gaps in your business, because you are going to be paying for it in the long run. And that's something I'm trying to instill in my current client, and that they need to hire more people, you know. Anyway,
Absolutely.
shall we close the show? We've rambled on enough.
I was just about to close the show properly, but you decided to interrupt me. Now it doesn't look like it's scheduled or planned.
Whatever. I'm running the show, really, Anna.
Yeah, you really are. So we are at the end of our show. A massive thank you to everyone in Twitch. Hello, Volkscrack. Hopefully we'll see you soon. It's lovely to see your voice. See you, Gwynth. I miss you. And Aussie and everybody else who was here chatting. Super Fraggle did make a comment earlier today, and I'd love to get to it at some point in time. Thank you everyone for listening. And for the people who are future listening to us in the podcast, we hope to see you live.
Yeah, and do please, if you're a new listener today, because there's a few names there's at least one name that I haven't seen before, please subscribe to our Twitch channel so you get notifications of when we go live. Yes, you can also visit our website on www.dnistream, where there's links to all of our social media platforms and everything else.
dnistream.live. Don't forget that TLD.
www.dnistream.live. So yes,
what? We need to soundbite that now. That needs to. No,
right. So that is where all of our discovery platforms and everything, all links to absolutely everything, is on our website. Please do go on there and get in touch about being a guest on the show or anything else. If you've got any comments, if you think we ramble too much or we complain too much or we're too bloody happy, please leave us a comment and tell us.
Oh, wow. Too bloody happy. Anyway, all that's left is for both Chris and I to say goodbye. And we hope to see you all next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. British summertime at twitch.tv/DNIstream. We have a guest.
Yes, we do. Not going to tell you who it is because we keep messing it up whenever we tell people. You'll have to listen.
That's the thing. Anytime we make mention of it, we have to either reschedule.
Yeah, so we're not going to tell you what we've got coming up. It could be version 2.4. We could go back to version 7 and overwrite it. We could just rebrand the entire show.
We have no idea.
You could have new hosts next week.
Ooh. You'll just have to tune in and find out.
Indeed.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.